Hello and welcome to the Tank Club. Today I'm going to be teaching you some dungeon etiquette. Now this isn't just for tanks, this is for everybody. And this is just a few tips or tricks to make your life better, to make other people's life better, to make the experience of doing 4-person dungeons an enjoyable one. And to kind of let's avoid some of those negative things that happen quite often in dungeon content, especially when using the dungeon queue. So first of all, number 1 on my dungeon etiquette list is being polite, being friendly. It's always nice. There's nothing wrong with a little hello in the chat to kind of start off the process nice, to kind of make people feel welcome, to make people feel comfortable. And then it's a great idea. If you are new to the dungeon, mention that you're doing the quest. If you are somebody who's done the quest, be respectful of those people that need to do the quest, especially those base game dungeons, those absolutely horrific quests that have stopping points at every single door or wall. Things like Vaults of Madness springs to mind, where you have to constantly be talking to the NPC and waiting and waiting and waiting. Now it's not the player's fault that they need to wait to get a skill point by completing the quest, and it takes forever. It's not their fault. So just be patient. Be patient. Be respectful for people needing the quest. But just make sure if you're somebody who needs the quest, let your group know. So they know to wait for you. They know not to rush ahead. And that's nice and easy. Another good thing to do as kind of a bit of etiquette is let people know if you're unsure of a mechanic, or what's causing you to die, or what's causing you to have some kind of issue. Like, I would much rather have somebody ask me, how do I do this, rather than keep dying constantly and not understanding. Because if you just keep constantly making the same mistakes and you never learn, it's never going to get any better. And it's much better as a player for me to see other people improving and getting better. I love to see the progression of other players. So if there's something you don't know, if you are kind of new to the dungeon, just let someone know. And I'm always comfortable and happy to take somebody through a dungeon if they're new to it, and even more so if I know they're new and I can explain certain mechanics and how to do certain fights. Another tip for dungeon etiquette, calling out chests and heavy sacks. Now, there's no benefit to taking all the loot for yourself and nobody else getting any. You only get 2 chests in every dungeon and 2 heavy sacks, so why not help out your fellow teammates and just call out the chests and the heavy sacks so everybody can benefit from that loot. Now, some of the more combat orientated things that you need to look out for. Dungeon etiquette. Do not rush ahead of your group. It's nice to stick together. Even if you think you're the biggest, baddest damage dealer in the whole of Tamriel, wait for your group. Why are you rushing? Let the tank pull first. What is the point in having a tank? The amount of times I go into a dungeon, a damage dealer rushes ahead, pulls the ads, dies, complains about it. Tanks are built for crowd control. It's not just about the tank pulling fast, it's about the crowd control, because when you've got a damage dealer who runs ahead and they pull the ads, they are literally running in every single damn direction possible. So let your tank pull. Let your tank control the ads, stack the ads, sort it all out, because in the long run, it's actually going to be much faster just doing that than running ahead and things running every which way possible. When you get to bosses, like I say, let the tank pull first. If you run and attack a boss, don't get mad when you die. Because if you're in a dungeon with me and you run ahead and you start aggroing a boss before me, because I'm usually waiting to make sure my group's ready, make sure everyone's behind me, make sure we're ready to go. If you're going to aggro a boss, I'm not going to taunt it and you are going to die. So do not aggro bosses before the tank. As a damage dealer, don't stand in the red circles. If there is red on the floor, or any kind of circle on the floor, it's bad. Don't get mad at the healer if you die because you're being bad and standing in those red circles. That is your fault. Don't stand in anything that is red. And it always works. You step out of it and you'll survive. Don't stand behind the healer. If you stand behind the healer, guess what happens? You cannot be healed. So don't stand behind your healer, stand in front of your healer. And do not stand anywhere near. Don't go near the tank. Don't at any point go near your tank. If you stood behind the tank, you're going to die to cleave. If you stood in front of the tank and near the boss, you're going to die from the boss. It doesn't matter where you stand. If you're near the tank, you are probably going to die. Don't fake tank and fake heal, mainly in hard content. Like, why would you queue for a DLC vet dungeon in the random dungeon queue as a fake tank? There is something seriously wrong with you if you think queuing for a DLC vet dungeon as a fake tank is ever going to be a good idea. You have got serious problems if you think that was ever going to end well. So if you are going to do hard content, don't pretend to be a fake healer or tank. Just queue as your role. If you want to be a tank, go and get some tank gear, go and get some tank skills, and just play a goddamn tank. If you're looking to do vet DLC dungeons, it might be a good idea to kind of watch on YouTube some videos of how to do them before. Like, going into a vet DLC dungeon is very, very different to just breezing through those base game vet hard modes. Like, it's not an issue. When you start going onto those DLC dungeons, they are much more difficult. There's much more mechanics. It's a nice idea to go and have a little look. Even if you don't really understand what's happening, at least if you've got an idea of what the bosses look like, the areas look like, some of the mechanics, what they look like, you're going to have a much easier time. Be willing to communicate by voice or text chat. Like, if you go into a dungeon, especially if you don't know what you're doing, be willing to communicate. There are some dungeons that just require communication. So you have to be willing to get on a voice chat, to read the chat, to understand the mechanic, to learn and work together as a team. You have to be willing to do that. When you are doing those vet dungeons, don't just always put hard mode on. Like, ask your group, make sure. If you notice, sometimes you are in a dungeon and you just notice your group is not physically capable. If the damage is mega low, obviously you're going to have a really hard time doing hard mode, especially in those DLC vet dungeons. Don't do it. Don't put that hard mode on unless everyone is in agreement and ready and it looks like they're ready and it's going to be worthwhile. Don't try and do content that is way and above the means that you're capable of. Like, if you can't even complete base game dungeons without dying, or you're hitting 10k DPS, then you're obviously not going to be ready for doing hard mode DLC dungeons. So you need to understand where your gaming experience and level is at, because you're just going to infuriate your teammates. It's the same as if you're a brand new tank and then you go into the hardest piece of dungeon content, you're going to infuriate your group. If you're a healer and you never heal your group, it's going to infuriate people. If you're a damage dealer and you can't do damage, you're going to infuriate your group. Now, people always get infuriated with tanks that don't know what they're doing. Try being a tank who knows what they're doing, but the damage dealers have no idea how to do damage. That is more infuriating, because dealing damage and just standing there doing a rotation, in some cases, is somewhat easier than having to know every mechanic and not die and sustain and heal and do everything as a tank. So if you are not hitting a decent amount of damage, if you are not capable of healing other people, if you're not capable of tanking a boss, then don't do content that you're not capable of. At the end of a dungeon, why not just say thanks to the group? A lot of people say GG. You got to remember, in this game, there are a lot of people of a lot of different age categories. We had this conversation a few days ago on my stream. Do you know how many people don't understand what GG means? Some people actually think GG means get good. So you get to the end of the dungeon, you pop GG in the chat, you got a 60-year-old guy who's just tanked it and you've told him GG and he thinks it means get good. He's going to be pretty offended. Why don't you just write thanks in the chat? Nice and easy. Thank your group for being there and getting through it together. At the end of a dungeon, what's the rush? There is no rush unless you've got to be somewhere, you've got to get to work. Why not just wait a couple of seconds so people can hand in their quest? If you've picked up gear and this is a dungeon you've done tons of times, why not just link your gear in the chat for other people? Because you could be enhancing the experience of other group members. They might be looking for stuff. It's nice to just share stuff that you don't need, especially when it's really easy to farm all the body pieces of a gear set. Just hand them out. It's not a problem. Just ask if anybody needs anything. And it's just a nice little common dungeon etiquette. And that is it, guys. That is my video on dungeon etiquette. Following some of these tips can make the game more fun for other people. This is an MMO game. If you enjoy playing this game, it is in your best interest to make other people enjoy playing it. If you're not very nice or very pleasant to people and then they quit the game because they don't like that the community is toxic or not very welcoming, then the game will eventually shut down because people will stop paying money. So it is in everyone's best interest to make this game enjoyable for each other. So let's follow some of these tips. Let's make the dungeon queue nicer for everybody. Let's all have fun and see you guys in the game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye for now.